Hi, my name is Leanna Staten, and I want to thank you for attending my session on what gifted students want you to know. This is my 5th year working as a GIS. Prior to this role, I worked as a 5th and 6th grade teacher, focusing on language arts and science. I took a few years off from teaching to pursue a career in HR and executive recruiting, but I always knew that I would return to the classroom someday. I'm a former gifted student myself, and I am the mom of 2 children with gifted identifications. My son is a senior this year, and he will be attending Miami University this fall, and he is what I would call a typical gifted underachiever. Then my daughter, who's a 7th grader, has a lot of the effective social emotional traits of our gifted kids. So why did I choose to explore this topic? Well, it started from back in college. At the end of every course, as a student, we would receive a professor course evaluation form. I thought it might be a good idea to learn initially what my students thought about my class, my lesson delivery, what they liked, what they didn't like, so I could use that feedback to improve my teaching skills. Once I became a gifted intervention specialist, I also became a pseudo gifted counselor / sounding board for my building's identified gifted students. Many of these students would come to me with their frustrations regarding the pace or the rigor of their classes. They would ask me for help with organization and executive functioning skills, or they would just come to me to talk about the stress and the pressure they're feeling in their classes. On more than one occasion, students have shared lots of frustrations about the rigor and how things are taught, and how there's a lack of real differentiation for gifted students to push them to a higher level. Anyone who's been a teacher for more than a year knows we have to attend a lot of different PD sessions each year through our districts. And a lot of these sessions, I've noticed, really focus on how to increase rigor, how to differentiate lessons, and how to best reach our gifted students. I often wondered, though, if anyone has ever asked the gifted students themselves what they would like us to learn as teachers so we could better help them and prepare them for what's coming next. What do our students really want us as teachers to know about their experience being gifted? And what do they need the most help with? Over the past 5 years as a GIS, I've been surveying my gifted students in the buildings in which I teach to learn more about their needs. This presentation will cover the results of my non-scientific research and ways we can provide the support and resources our students seek. So over the years, the gifted kids I've surveyed have a lot of common frustrations. One being in the area of executive functioning and organization. I love this quote from one of my students because it really hits home. The student said, "Telling me I need to be more organized does not help me. I need someone to show me how to do it. And I can tell you it's going to take more than a 30-minute meeting." So a lot of times students who are lacking in the area of executive functioning, they don't know where to begin. They're overwhelmed, they're stressed, they're anxious, and they don't even know how to begin being organized. And I've heard this a lot from my students, and I'll talk a little bit more about this as we get further into the session. But I thought that quote was pretty impactful. Other students have said, just because I'm gifted in one area does not mean I'm gifted in everything. I receive a lot of these responses in these surveys, especially at the elementary and intermediate levels, where students are clustered together in gifted classrooms, but maybe they don't all share the same identifications. Every subject in these classes moves at a faster pace. But where does this leave the student who is only identified in math or in reading? I think we really, as teachers, need to keep this in mind as we're setting our expectations for these students. And then another one is, just because I'm gifted does not mean I don't need instruction. There's definitely frustration here from students. Many of our students don't want to learn everything independently. They like for teachers to teach and discuss and question. Several of the students I polled get very frustrated when they have legitimate questions and are told by their teachers to go back and find the information in the materials they've already provided. They get frustrated. They've been trying this and they still don't understand. So sometimes what we see as a lack of effort is really students needing a different way for the material to be presented. While teaching gifted kids to be better problem solvers and independent thinkers is really important, many gifted kids still need that support and that safety net of their teacher to reach their full potential. They need to feel and know that that support is going to be there. Another one that came up quite a bit is perfectionism. Sometimes our students who are missing assignments or aren't turning things in on time, they may be suffering from perfectionism. And I think that the quote I have on the screen really hit home with me. A lot of times my late assignments are due to me not being confident. Then I get points taken off for being late, and the next assignment really has to be perfect or my grade will continue to drop. It creates an awful cycle, and I wish my teachers would understand what I'm going through. Another response that I got pretty frequently is students are frustrated by inconsistent expectations. Some classes are way too easy for them, others pile on work and projects continually. One of the students said, I want to learn and be challenged, but I don't want busy work. We'll talk about that a little bit in later slides. Expectations should be set for students as individuals. Some of us in gifted math are super gifted in math, and some of us are smart, but not Einstein smart. Not everyone catches on immediately, but the expectation is we all should get it and then just keep going. So I think some of our gifted students experience frustration if they don't get it immediately and other members in their class do, and then as teachers we continue to move on with our pace that we've decided to set for our class and our instruction. And I think that students feel a lot of pressure to keep up with their friends and also to keep up with the content, but if they're missing something or they don't understand, as teachers, sometimes we need to go back and maybe do some small group instruction and help these kids to get caught up. According to students, they feel the following two areas need to be addressed with teacher training. One is helping kids who are gifted but aren't motivated and procrastinate a lot. Some of the quotes I have from this include, our interests should be considered when creating assignments. Why do you give so much busy work? Why do we spend an entire week on a topic when we got it the first day? One said, reteaching, ugh. We learn the same stuff every year. It gets really annoying. 90% of the stuff we already know from previous years. It just makes school seem like a complete waste of time. And then, I can't stand doing busy work. What is the point? I could take the test and get an A on day one without the stupid practice for weeks. And these are direct quotes from my surveys. Students also want their teachers to know about the stress and pressures they are feeling. This was the most concerning to me because overall this was the most responded to criteria or item. Some quotes. If teachers knew more about what we are going through, they might be able to adjust the expectations so we aren't freaking out all the time. Another one was, can teachers communicate with other teachers regarding deadlines, etc.? Sometimes we have way too much to work on. Another one was, the amount of work coupled with me being a perfectionist results in a lot of tears. How do I get over this? So this student is seeking help for this. And then always having to be right is exhausting. If the work is more challenging, then sometimes a B should be okay for the teachers and our parents. So some takeaways from the surveys I've compiled. It turns out that even though we think we're providing rigor and challenge, some of us are only providing more work. Our students are also experiencing a lot of stress and pressure to be excellent students. Yet some teachers may not take these social emotional needs into consideration when setting expectations. So how do we help our students in these areas? My takeaway from the student surveys are maybe we need to reevaluate how much we are expecting and what we are expecting. Are there ways we can find to evaluate our students that are less cumbersome for everyone involved, the students and ourselves? Are we communicating with our teaching peers or those in our pods to understand how much we are asking students to do? And are we really considering the social emotional needs of our students when we're designing assignments and designing assessments? So how do we motivate someone who seems pretty unmotivated? The answer to this is we may need to change our approach. The first task is to really provide these students with a real challenge. And that's a real challenge as opposed to more work. Work at the highest levels of Bloom's taxonomy to create challenging assignments. I love that Jay Taylor is at this conference and is offering sessions on depth and complexity. They have wonderful, useful, easy to implement suggestions on how to provide students with more challenging work as opposed to simply more work. If we increase the depth and complexity of the task we want students to perform, they're challenged to think deeper and differently. And sometimes a lot of our students won't exhibit gifted behaviors until we provide this challenge. The solution to this dilemma is differentiation. Differentiation needs to occur even within clustered gifted classrooms. Gifted students comprehend complex ideas quickly, they learn more rapidly and at greater depth than same-age peers, but even within a gifted classroom, not every single student is going to be at the same level. One tried and true way to provide differentiation within a gifted classroom is the utilization of pre-assessments or pre-tests. I'm a strong believer if students have mastered the content, they shouldn't have to repeat it and practice it. They should be able to apply it and maybe do other more extended activities, but the practice portion of it needs to be excused. The students need to be able to move on to a higher level. So if pre-tests are well constructed and they cover the material in a unit, you can give those pre-tests, then analyze them to see where students have deficiencies and give them the opportunity to work on those deficiencies during the unit. Or if they've mastered everything, provide them with alternative assignments at a higher level. Granted, this method requires thoughtful planning, but once you've created these enriched assignments on the same topic, it gets easier each time you teach these lessons. And one thing to really keep in mind is that our gifted students still need instruction. So some students will come to you having mastered the content previously, and for some it may be completely new. And we need a plan for both scenarios. Not everyone is going to be the same. So we need to have multiple options and strategies available to help with our students' growth. So as I mentioned previously, one strategy is to pre-test for the unit. So if a student receives an 80% or higher, they don't have to do the practice assignments. So an example of that may be vocabulary. So rather than having every student in your class write the words and the definitions, maybe have a pre-test, see who knows the words and the definitions. Those who don't know them, those will be the students who need to learn the words and the definitions, and those who have mastered those words and definitions can move on to applying that knowledge, creating a story, creating a game, or coming up with other ways they can show that they have mastered that skill. In math, another way to provide differentiation is to offer the students the opportunity to solve the 5 most difficult problems first. If they can do the most challenging problems on a homework assignment, let's say you have 20 questions and they can master and show you that they know how to do the 5 most difficult problems, mark their assignment as complete. They're finished with it. They don't need to do the other practice problems. With compacting the curriculum, by utilizing pre-test, you can determine where the class as a whole needs whole group instruction and where maybe a small group of students might need small group instruction to bring them up to speed on a skill. This way, if you utilize this, you can really move the class at a much quicker pace and skip forward while you are remediating and pulling those students who may be missing a few skills along so that they're caught up. And finally, another one I love to use is exit tickets. I use exit tickets to better understand where my teachers are with their thinking and their understanding. So a quick exit ticket can provide a great snapshot of where students are. If they're used correctly, students who are struggling can then, again, be pulled aside for small group instruction, while those who have mastered the skill can apply the skill in a variety of ways. A big reason why students procrastinate or seem to be unmotivated to do work is due to the lack of relevance. Students who don't understand the relevance of a school activity or an assignment are not usually motivated to accomplish that task. The exception a lot of times is when students really want to please their teachers or their parents. But I find that it's really important for students to understand the connection between what is being taught and why they are practicing certain skills. On the survey I gave, one of the students stated, "Are we focusing on certain topics just to fill time and space? I would love to know why we are learning some of the stuff taught in class because I don't see the relevance." And that's a direct quote from one of my junior high students. One way to battle this is to ask students, why do you think we're covering this topic? Can you make connections in your own lives? Where might this information be important? Taking the 10 minutes out of class to have a discussion at the beginning of a unit or the beginning of a lesson to establish the relevance can really make a difference in how students react to the lesson. So overall, students identified stress and pressure as being the number one thing they feel they need help with from their teachers. And I started wondering after I was reading through the responses and the comments, is that a result of a lack of executive functioning skills and procrastination? I don't know. But I think executive functioning skills definitely play a role in how much stress and pressure our students are feeling. Some people, how to manage a calendar, how to meet deadlines, etc., it comes naturally for them. Other people, not so much. And by the time students get to the junior high level, if they haven't learned how to stay organized, they can tank. I work with a lot of gifted students who have issues in this area. At the intermediate school, I formed an executive functioning group that we call the leadership skills group. And I work with students to teach them to identify the best ways for them to organize themselves and how to stay on task. It's not a one-size-fits-all group. We go through a lot of different methods and strategies for organization and time management, but I think it's important for kids to know that not every method or every way to organize is going to fit everyone. I do frequent check-ins with these students to strengthen their skills in this area and to help them develop new skills in the area. I know at the junior high this is something core content teachers don't have a lot of time to focus on. But if that's the case and you have students who need to develop these skills, I really encourage you to reach out to your gifted intervention specialist for your building or your counselors for support in this area. We can help students in this area, whether it's through pull-out sessions, check-ins, etc. Bad habits are really hard to break, as we all know. And so if we can develop a plan with our core content teachers and develop a partnership to help these students who are struggling to learn organizational strategies, it will really result in great benefits for them. If you want to have a great resource for this, a great book is Smart But Scattered, which I've linked in my resources PDF. It provides multiple ways to teach and incorporate executive functioning skills into your classroom. I use it for the basis of my leadership skills class, but there are a lot of mini lessons that you can teach from this book to help students become more organized and stronger with executive functioning. The earlier we can help address executive functioning needs for our students, the better off everyone else is. Students who have executive functioning needs, they feel out of control. They can't focus. They're constantly worried about what they're missing or what they forgot. And parents feel tons of frustration because they're at home trying to help their kids catch up on work and they are not at school with their students, so they are unable to help them organize. And again, with executive functioning, it's something that needs to be specific to the student and the student's personalities and the way they learn and organize best. And it's really hard to do that. Students feel lots of stress, and there is not one gifted student who wants to turn in assignments late or wants to not have the paper that they thought they had in their folder but left on the kitchen table. They don't enjoy being singled out like that. They don't enjoy having this additional stress on them. So if we can identify students who need this early on in the elementary level and work with them to develop these skills early on, it will really help to alleviate a lot of the stress and anxiety they experience as they get into the upper grades where there's increased rigor. So the Ohio Department of Education has a social emotional needs curriculum, as part of its adapted curriculum for grades K through 12. We need to be focused on these in all classrooms, helping develop self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Social emotional learning and skills cannot be one and done. We can't teach these skills or assume they were taught in lower grades and check them off a list and never revisit or practice them again. We have to put these skills into the classroom practice, regardless of what content area we are teaching. We can't teach these skills in a silo. Growth mindset and social emotional lessons won't matter if we don't model these behaviors and practice them. This should be done in every classroom. When we see our students struggling to complete assignments, use the opportunity to take a few minutes and revisit the skills students may have learned in previous grades. How to help students deal with stress and anxiety was the number one thing my students want teachers to learn. Students don't want to be embarrassed or singled out, but they need to know that they have a safe place to practice these strategies and learn these strategies and know that we're supporting them and available for help if they need it. Social emotional skills and lessons need to be worked into classroom practice, regardless of the content area you're teaching. We cannot teach growth mindset and social emotional learning in a silo. It needs to be modeled and it needs to be practiced. This should be done in every single classroom. When we see our students struggling to complete assignments, maybe we take a few minutes to discuss the anxiety and the stress and how to handle that and how to move forward in a positive, productive way. Stress and anxiety and how to help students handle stress and anxiety were the number one topic when my students were surveyed that they wanted their teachers to learn more about. Students don't want the embarrassment of being singled out in the class, but we need to find ways to help them as a group know that we are here for them and that we support them and that we're available to them if they're having difficulties. Some people think I'm a softie as I seek input from my students regarding their workloads, and many times I look at my expectations of them, and sometimes I adjust my deadlines so that they are not under so much stress. I understand this doesn't work for every classroom, but I definitely encourage students to meet me during their study hall periods or to send me emails if they're feeling overwhelmed or if they're just not able to get everything that's on their plate done. I found that by showing my students grace and flexibility and supporting them, almost all of them end up turning in the work. And surprisingly, many of them turn it in on time. I want them to understand that I'm on their side. I want them to succeed. And I want to make sure if I'm assigning something, it's purposeful, it's necessary, and that they have the appropriate amount of time to do the work well and to turn it in. I hope this presentation has given you some insight into what students are thinking and what we can do as teachers to fully support them. Will these suggestions result in every student turning in assignments and putting in 100% effort? Probably not. But what is most important for gifted learners? My goals are to improve their ability to cope and to improve their perseverance and to grow and learn and for me to provide them support and strategies to help them navigate our challenging and very stressful world. If you have questions or need resources, I've included my work email and my personal email on this last slide. And again, I appreciate you taking the time to watch my presentation and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.